so I'm going to be talking about a game we developed last year called Fair Critters, which is designed to help kids, 12-year-olds in particular, develop healthier eating habits and acquire the skills that they need in order to be able to make better choices about their nutrition. And I realize that I'm an unfamiliar face to probably almost all of you here, and one of the great established ways to curry favor with an unfamiliar audience is to show the doorway pictures of your baby. So, and she's actually sick today, so we're going to have to make sure we have to plan all of these so not have a lot of time to network, but Bree will be around. Another reason why I'm bringing Margot up is because in the development of this game, one of the things that I had in the back of my mind was the fact that right now I have the ability, she's 2.5, to really exercise good control over what she eats. And I'm confident about the fact that I'm getting good nutrition. Over time, I know that's not always going to be the case. I also know that inevitably video games are going to be a very important part of her life. They're a very, very important part of her life. So one of the things that I had in the back of my mind was that I wanted to create something that would make me better as a parent. And I actually think that is one of the best ways to do design is to have a personal investment, feel some connection to what it is that you're creating. And that was certainly true of this project. So the agenda for today, we're going to spend about 20% of the time talking about the overview of the challenge in which this, that actually spawned the creation of this game. 30% of the time we're going to spend on game demo. Another 30% is going to be, we're going to talk about the strategies for creating a persuasive game. This is what I think is going to be one of the key takeaways for this. It might be something that's kind of different from what we may have been exposed to in the past in discussions of games. 10% is going to be Shane's pattern. 5% is going to be the baby pictures, and another 5% is going to it's actually going to be typos. Okay, so instructions. I was the lead designer on this game in particular, and I'm the treasurer of Megazord Games, which is quite an easy job considering we don't have any money. He also is Brady Lance. She's the developer. She was the developer of Critters, and she's the president of Megazord.
Which is also quite easy since we don't really disagree.
Okay, so quick plug. I'm actually writing a book right now. It's going to be coming out at the end of this year. And I'm pretty excited about it at this point because I'm just finishing up the manuscript. There's still a lot of work to do, but it is pretty much on track to actually be released in December. It's called Playful Design. And it's about what people in my line of work, which is user experience design, can learn from game design. It advocates for it. It advocates that we should incorporate game design as part of our user experience toolkit. It's really going well. I've got a lot of great side written by Jesse Schell, one by Stone Brand, creative director of Access, one by James Madigan, James Paul G. Logos is a terrific one. So it's really come together well. And if you're at all interested in it, you can sign up to get a reminder about when it actually comes out by going to playfuldesign.com. So anyway, I want to start out by posing what's really a very complex question, which is what causes childhood obesity? And go immediately to the overly simplistic answer, this does. And I would say that's somewhat facetiously, but it's also kind of true that high fat, high calorie, low nutrition foods and children's access to it is really at the heart of the problem. And ultimately, because kids are growing up this way, we're becoming a society that is much heavier and a society that is much less healthy. That creates a lot of burdens on society. And there are a lot of people who are interested these days in finding ways to counteract the forces that are driving kids towards these kinds of things. The good news is that access to healthier options is improving. So, for example, a lot of things, but just a few highlights. The Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act of 2010 authorized federal funds for school lunch programs. In 2010, 12 states adopted policies to improve access to healthy foods in school venues. And according to Robert Johnson Foundation through the National School Lunch Program, public secondary schools are offering students healthier options from the cafeteria. This is all new. It used to be the case. And it's great. I mean, this is really important that kids have better food available to them and that's where they are every day. The problem is that access alone really isn't enough. For there to be substantive, meaningful change, what we really need is transformation, personal transformation. And that means that children need to, a few things that they have. One, they need to understand the nutritional attributes of food and make more informed choices about what they're eating. Two, they need to build a knowledge base of better and worse food choices so that they can kind of go in the store and say, well, I know this is a better choice for me and I know this is a worse choice for me. Three, they need to develop skills to interpret nutrition information. So when they're exposed to something for the first time, they can assess the meaning. And you know what? These first three things, these are actually all very doable. I mean, this ultimately comes down to education, which is something that is invested right now. I'm confident that there's time this can be done. The real kicker, though, is the last one, that kids need to learn to value healthier food choices. That one is much more challenging. Why? Because it's really easy for a clown to sell cheeseburgers to kids. More than anything, the problem is cultural. We grow up this way, accepting this as the way that we eat, and it kind of becomes bound up in our identity of who we are as Americans. And that is one tough nut to crack. I believe that if there's unique attributes of video games, coupled with their cultural legitimacy, that actually makes them an ideal way to counteract the social forces, the cultural forces, that instill negative attitudes toward nutrition in kids. And Michelle Obama has been really vocal on this. She has an issue called Let's Move It. You may have heard of it. A lot of advertising around it now. She has a great publication on her website. It's part of the mission statement, actually. She says, I'm trying to work with folks across this country to change the way that a generation of kids think about food and nutrition. And that really cuts to the heart of the matter because what she's talking about is that we need to persuade, we need to change people's minds, the way they think about things, change what they value. And that is really what is going to make a difference. So what does all this have to do with video games? Well, last year, Let's Move in coordination with the IGDA, put together a challenge called Acts for Healthy Kids. And this was announced in March of last year at GDC. And I read about it at the time. I took note of it, especially for my book. That's kind of the way that I was thinking about it. And then a couple months later in May, late May actually, I was just kind of sitting around and chatting with a friend, and all of a sudden it dawned on me, okay, we could actually develop something for this and submit to it. I probably know people who have the skills to put something together. And an idea kind of came together very quickly for me, and I put it down on paper. And I talked to actually the other person who's the founder of Megazway. His name is Andrew Perez. And he said, this looks good, but I think that we need more help on it. And I suggested actually that Bree Lance would be a good person to bring in. We all work together, by the way, at Vanguard with our day job at the time, which is unusual. Bree was actually in Iceland at the time, which made it difficult. And even more of a problem was the deadline for submission was rapidly approaching. It was actually due on June 30th, 2010. And so when we got back from Iceland, I immediately said, hey, Bree, how's Iceland? By the way, can you work on this game with us? And she took a look at it and very thankfully she said yes. We had our first meeting on June 1st, and by June 30th, exactly by that day, we had it finished. So it was kind of a marathon time. It was actually a lot of time. I valued it. So the challenge that the contest set out was to create games that teach 8 to 12-year-olds healthier eating habits. And the game that we put together was called Figure Critters. And we actually ended up taking second place out of 63 entrants in the contest. So we were pretty happy about that. This is actually at the White House. This was almost a year ago. It was September 3rd last year. It was a lot of fun. We went to tour the White House briefly, and then we had an award ceremony. We probably would have Obama did, but we got to meet Secretary of Agriculture Tom Vilsack. food and then actually feed them. And the part of the gameplay is that each day, there are these bars down at the bottom of the screen, kind of like The Sims in that way. And you're responsible for filling all of these green bars, which represent positive nutritional attributes of food. Each and every day in the game plays over an extended period of time without filling any of the red bars. So we have a few strategic goals for the game. First one was to educate in a set of order of rewards. Goal number 3 was to educate. And that is pretty much the first 3 goals that I'm looking for: understanding nutritional attributes of food, building up a personal database of diverse food choices, and developing the skills you need to deliver nutrition. Second most important goal was to persuade, and that was that one challenging goal that we have about learning the value of healthier food choices. I'll show you how we try to tackle that in a minute. Number 1 goal, big yes, what else?
Change it together.
Yeah. Number 1 goal, and goal is learning. And this really is at the heart of our approach. We fundamentally believe that games need to be games first. They need to be appreciated for their gameness. That's the reason why people are invested in them in the first place. And to the extent that serious games, or games for change, or games for health, or what have you, prioritize something above the quality of the player's feelings, we believe that is ultimately self-defeating. Games need to be appreciated for what they are and for their ability to entertain people. So with that, I'm going to do a quick demo of the game.
Alright, I'm just going to show you guys the demo real quick. I have to give kind of a little caveat, which is that this that I'm going to show you guys today is still basically that one initial version that we did. We have a new version that's like a week away from being ready, and it's not really ready to show you yet. I remember that fact. But this is kind of the version we entered in the contest that you guys can see. So it's a Flash UI. We chose that for easy access and we can play with the browser anywhere. It's from my iPad, obviously. And it's kind of got a linear layout. You move from side to side, and appropriate to a game that's focused around the selection and some of the food you start out in the kitchen of this character's house. In the kitchen, you have a couple different things you can do. You have a place where all your food is stored, fridge, and you start off with a certain basic set of things. And you also have the stove, which can be used to create meals. So there's kind of 2 different levels of food in the game. There's basic ingredients, which you can eat on their own, each one having its own sort of set of nutritional information. Like, for example, you could eat a carrot if you wanted to have carrots, and you can find out kind of all of the qualities of that food and the way in which they're going to impact your bars, your goals down at the bottom. Meals then are kind of taking it to the next level. They're a combination of ingredients, and you have the ability to actually select and create new recipes. So there's kind of a creative component to it. Say I'm going to make something with carrots and chicken and Cheerios, because why not? And you can actually go ahead and create a meal, give it a name, whatever. And it's going to have certain qualities above and beyond those of the ingredients themselves. And mainly, a meal is one of the ways in which you earn money in the game. So there are actually 3 ways. Can you relate to those?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's 3 ways. There's 3 ways that you can earn money in the game. One is that you get a daily salary, which is dependent on your health. So what you eat over time affects your health affects your daily salary. Another way you can earn money is by creating meals and selling them. And meals that have a higher nutritional quality sell for more money, so you make more money by developing healthier meals. And the third way that you can earn money is by playing games, which I'm going to show you guys in a minute. This meal, I'm thinking, is pretty gross. I don't really like it, so I'm just going to go ahead and sell it and make some money for myself. And so, the player's guide just went up a little bit. So what do you do with the money? Right now, our main kind of reward structure is around you can buy different things. You can place, I'm going to just put a cactus here, cactus, cacti, sorry. And that's what you can do right now. We want to add more sort of functional things that you can purchase eventually as well, such as the ability to upgrade your kitchen appliances, to purchase things that actually, enhance your ability to take action within the game as well as good items. Aside from the house, you can also go outside, and there's several useful things out here. One of those is the grocer, the restaurant. The grocer being the place where you can buy ingredients, and the restaurant being the place where you can buy pre-prepared meals. Eventually, this is kind of a bit of a placeholder right now. We want to enhance this to allow people, when you sell a meal, that meal is actually going to show up in the restaurant, and other players can buy the meal that you create to get sort of a little aspect of an in-game economy going almost, with people hopefully figuring out how to create healthy meals, selling them to other players, and then other players can purchase those and learn from them as well, copy the recipes. But for now, we only have a few preset items in here. The grocery is really the main actual good and disgusting that you could possibly come up with. And we're also doing a lot of work right now to kind of narrow down this stuff a little bit, clean up the information, and make this interface something a little bit more visual and less like a strict accurate. Another thing that we have that's kind of a way to provide the player with at least a few healthy ingredients over time is the garden. So this is just, you have the garden, you have a free, right now you have a few preset types of vegetables that you can get. And over time you can harvest that. You get some spinach, zucchini, carrots, and tomatoes. And this is something that eventually you want to tie back in again with eating, where you will be able to hopefully actually purchase a compost bin, compost your food, lettuce in the garden so that your yield improves, kind of tying all of that back in together again. This is down the road. And also we will be able to choose crops, that sort of thing. And finally, we have the games. These really exist because we wanted to have an exercise component to the game as well. Exercise is equally important to nutrition for health. And so the games are, right now these are a bit of a placeholder, they're kind of static, but what it is that your health and the energy that you have will affect your performance and determine whether you win or lose. And I think that I actually, so my energy right now is only 94, that's too low, I can't play a game. So I need to go back and eat some more food to get my energy up before I can go and play. So I'm going to do that. And while I'm doing that, the games, along with earning new money, also improve your body fat percentage. So this is one of the, I don't know if you can see it down there at the bottom, this is one of the statistics that we follow. So trying to convey that exercise has positive effects on your health, and then again, your health is not going to determine how much money you can pay to help these games. Really a lot of the process of the design of this game was figuring out how to tie all these different components together. So how your food affects your health, affects your salary, affects your games, all of that. We kind of wanted it all to feed back in together so that it all kind of come together as well. Makes sense. So I'm just going to do a race real quick. See how we go. One of the things we're working on right now is making this more interactive, where you actually have the ability to make some choices and take actions during the game that help affect whether you win or lose. So, I could have gotten that red health right now, so we lost. Unfortunately, he didn't win any money this time, but that's something that we can work on in the future. And that's really mainly it, I think. Is there anything else that you guys should know? And one thing I did, are you going to talk about junk food buys?
Why don't you bring it up?
Okay, one of the things that I think that John came up with that I thought was really brilliant actually is that we wanted it to mirror real life, where in a sense, there are, in a way, merits to eating junk food. It provides you with a quick burst of energy, it provides you with, it's pleasant, it provides enjoyment, but there's also a downside to that. And the way we did that in this game was by building in something called junk food bias. What that means is that when the character over time consumes unhealthy foods that are high in fat, foods that are high in added sugar, the player will actually develop a preference for that type of food, and over time you get to actually reject healthy foods when you try to feed them to him. It makes it a bit more difficult to turn the character around and bring them back up to health again. And he have to counteract that by feeding the very healthy foods over and over again until their junk food bias is reduced. So we kind of wanted to use that to model the way that that's actually very realistic to the way it works in real life, where as you consume a certain type of foods, it actually builds your taste for that type of food and you come to prefer it. And also, that's also something that we use to give the damage to meals, because a character will never reject a meal, no matter how healthy it is. So we use it to kind of encourage people to go through the effort of putting together meals. It's the easiest way to counteract the junk food bias. Anything else? Okay, I'm going to let John take back over.
Okay, this is actually, since I said today, we'll do this after this. Okay, so the game was intended for use inside of classrooms, and we actually prepared in collaborating with an education consultant, a unit plan for kids or for teachers to make 8 interdisciplinary lessons they could use to integrate the game into classroom instruction. And it contains all kinds of worksheets and little mini games and overhead. It's really cool. One of the things that we wanted to do as well is that since we wanted to integrate this into classrooms, one of the challenges around that is that teachers are really pressed for time right now. They're spending a lot of their time teaching the text. And so the unit plan is actually calibrated to national standards, not just for nutrition education, but for math, science, technology, and so forth. And so it broadens it beyond the nutrition lessons itself and creates something that we hope will be more enticing for teachers to actually use inside the classroom. So the next thing we'll talk about is design to persuade inside of games, which I think is a really interesting subject. And the thinking on this was really heavily influenced by a game called, by a book called Persuasive Games. It was by Moses. Have you read this book? What do you think?
I really like it.
Did you? I think that the idea that's at the heart of this book is really brilliant. What he's talking about is the idea that games are a form of procedural rhetoric, and I so agree with this. By that, it means that they're able to communicate persuasive messages, like newspapers and television and billboards. All these things are able to communicate persuasive messages. Games are unique as a communications medium because they have a property that he calls procedurality, which means they're able to execute rules. And what makes a procedural medium fundamentally different from television and newspapers or from billboards is the fact that in all those media, the message is communicated overtly. But in procedural media, it's communicated through participation in the experience. So a great example of that is back in 1999, the Kansas State School Board actually banned the teaching of evolution into public schools, which is surprising. That has been reversed since then, but that actually didn't happen not that long ago. And there were some science teachers who did not think that was a good idea. And so one of them was a man named Al Frisbee, who was a high school science biology teacher. And he wanted to teach evolution and natural selection. However, he faced an awful lot of hostility from his community. And literally school districts were gluing together pages and textbooks that discussed evolution. This was something that was being closed down as an option inside the classrooms. And so he decided not to teach overtly, but to achieve the same thing through process, through game actually. So what he did was he took the kids out into a grassy field where he had planted a bunch of toothpicks, some of which were red and some of which were green. And he gave them each student either a plastic fork or a plastic spoon. These students then played the role of predators, with the toothpicks being their prey. And the idea of the game is that we need to go through, and each student needs to gather as many toothpicks as they possibly can. And the one thing, the input that they had was an adaptation that either made them better at picking up toothpicks or worse. But moreover, the color of the toothpick represented an adaptation that either made it more vulnerable to predation or more easy to blend in and camouflage itself into the environment. And what he was doing was he was teaching the very basic lesson of natural selection entirely through process. That is what procedural rhetoric is. So in putting together the game, I was following 5 primary guidelines for creating a persuasive game, which I derived from the Ghost's book, although it's sort of a modification of this method. The first one was to find a core message. So a persuasive game must be designed around a clear and concise statement of what it is that you want the players to do or to believe. That's very important because it centralizes the design around supporting that message. You're able to say, okay, so this feature of it very efficiently supports the message, whereas this feature does not. It allows you to cut that feature out and say you're going to prefer this one because it's more important. There's actually a feature we had in the game called fullness. We decided to support our core message and cut it. So when I was putting the game together, I actually did a prototype of it. And all around, you see the different factors that play inside the game. So there's body fat, joint size, fullness, and other factors. And these things I was all testing out to see how well they supported the central ideas. And those factors all around the edges kept changing, but the one thing that remained constant was the core message of the game, which was the first thing that I wrote down. There are 2 of them. First one was that eating a varied diet rich in vegetables, fruits, and whole grains leads to better quality of life. The second one was eating junk food may have short-term advantages, but in the long run, it's not worth negative health consequences. Those were the 2 points we wanted to make inside the game. And it allows us to say, this feature does support that, this feature does not support that, more enough. Point 2 is to tie the message to the strategy of the game. So games have the quality of driving players to find the most efficient ways to win. That's part of what games do. And if the message represents the ideal strategy, then the process of playing serves as proof of this. Louis von Ahn, who's a researcher at Carnegie Mellon, made these really interesting games that he calls games with purpose. Actually compares games, he actually says that games are algorithms that are executed on human beings rather than actually executed on machines. And what we're trying to do, what we want to do with that algorithm is to get people to adopt your core message as a working hypothesis and then use the game in order to prove its truthfulness. So in order to do that with fair critters, what we did was we built a tiered system of rewards, which was all predicated on making better food choices, on figuring out which are better foods to eat, and then giving those exclusively to your critters and avoiding unhealthy food choices. And if you were able to do that consistently in the game, the result of that would be that your health would go up. The result of your health going up would be that you would be more productive, you would win more sports games, and both of those would earn more money. Additionally, you get sick less often. So there's a certain probability every day that the critters are going to get sick. And that probability is based on the health level. And if the critter is more unhealthy, much more likely to get sick. And if they're healthier, they're much less likely to get sick. And the effect of sick is that you're unable to work and you're unable to participate in games. So ultimately what that means is that for that day, you're not able to earn any money. So by making better food choices and by bringing up your health, you are increasing the amount of money that you earn. The money you can then use to trigger out your path that has a ratio here, and ultimately that is going to lead to some social rewards. One of the capabilities we want to build in the game in the future is going to be that players are going to be able to visit one another's houses to see how they've put their places developed with them, and create sort of a deliberate envy between them about who's doing better. And then be able to learn from people what is it propensity boards are something that's one of the most powerful ways on you can build inside the game. Third point was to enable self-directed discovery. So self-directed discovery persuades by giving people a feeling of ownership of the inside the data uncovered. Ideally, what we want to do is we want to get people to make your argument for you. That's much better than making it work, because then people get a personal feeling of ownership of that. So there are a few things in the game that facilitate self-directed discovery. So one of the things, obviously, is making better food choices. And there are a lot of food items inside the game. You may discover, for example, that a sorbet is actually a wonderful dessert because it has no added sugar inside it. And that actually provides a really good serving of fruit, which actually makes it nutritious. It's a wonderful thing to eat. And that, among all desserts, is something you can discover. You're not going to but it's there for you to additionally, you can also discover better ways to source your food. So the garden is something that allows you to save money to purchase food. You get high quality food. All the food you get from the garden is very nutritious. You can also discover healthy recipes, and that's really what the cooking mechanic is about. So as we showed, you can take a bunch of ingredients and combine them and get together in a meal. And there's actually an algorithm inside the game that evaluates the nutritional value of the meal that you've created. And as we were saying before, based upon that, it will actually award a higher sell price to that meal if it's more nutritious. And so you can actually make a profit off of preparing meals. And then also, as we showed, you can sell the meals to the restaurant and profit that way, and that enables social learning comes up to the next format. Fourth point was to offer meaningful choices to people. So this is really important. If there is no advantage to making the wrong choice, then there really is no choice at all. So if healthy foods offer nothing but exclusively advantages, and unhealthy foods offer nothing but disadvantages, then you're missing an opportunity to learn. So one way we did that was we affected high-calorie foods. So a bacon double cheeseburger has a lot of calories inside, and there are advantages to calories because when you consume them, you get more energy for sports games and you get more energy for work. That means you're able to play more sports games because you get energy to participate. And it also means that you're going to earn more money because you're more productive. Because energy is one of the two factors coupled with health that allows you to make a higher salary. However, there were disadvantages as well. So I mean, it's somewhat counterintuitive to say that that there has to be some advantage in making the wrong choice. But the key point is to make sure that the downsides outweigh the upsides. So the consequences, you see you're going to go limits faster, you're going to go over your, much more to go over your fat or your fat sugar, and your brain will also start projecting upward off, so the junk food bias. Fifth point is to keep it real. So video games capacity simulate the conditions of the real world and impart credibility to its embedded arguments. That's really important. You want the game to actually function the way that some things function in the real world. Now, games that create their own universe that is subject to its own rules, and that's an important element of design. It's important that you be able to exercise that, because if you make it a pure simulation, it will be boring. You need the game to be a game, so exercising flexibility is important. But at the same time, if you're making a persuasive message, you have to be selective about the things that you're playing with. And so keeping certain points reflected, and that one apple all of a sudden imparted super strength to you that lasted for 5 minutes, that's not representative of reality. It's not teaching a lesson that can be generalized to real life because it's intrinsically artificial. So inside the game, we had 675 actual food items. We're actually comparing this back. But we started with that enough because we wanted to have a database that allowed people to encounter the foods do encounter selectively thinking of. There was something, there were like a lot of weird things that we initially data set applied by the USDA that we took out. Something like older. I don't even know what that is. And so we figured things like cheaper, fun, corn dogs, things that people encounter every day. And furthermore, the objectives are based on real consumption guidelines. This actually is somewhat true in the launch version of the game. I kind of approximated it. Recently, I've worked with the USDA to ensure that the amount of each nutrient that you need to consume every day is representative of what the actual dietary guidelines are. So if you eat an apple, it's going to represent for a typical 8 to 12-year-old, the amount of bars available is going to represent a typical 8 to 12-year-old how many fruit servings that person should be getting in a day. So that's a very important way of keeping it real and making sure that it's actually reflective of real world. That's really important because it allows us to teach very specific lessons about nutrition. This is how much you need to get at this. This is how much you need to get at this. A lot of people simply don't understand. It can be very surprising. Okay, so what's next? Well, we're doing a few things right now. We're actually going to be piloting it in classrooms starting next month. So I went to a really great conference back in May called Games for Health, and I met some wonderful researchers there from the University of Massachusetts Medical School, and another researcher from Southern University, which is outside of Boston. They showed a lot of interest in this, and we working with them, we set up a pilot we're going to be running at a public school that is kind of far outside of Boston, starting next month. And I'm really excited about it. That's why we're in the process of turning the game over now. We want to get it ready for that and adding a lot of features for the sake of it. And we'll actually be able to get quantitative data out of it by tracking the usage inside of it. We're also going to be testing for a few things. We're going to be testing for knowledge gaining. Do kids better understand nutrition? We'll be looking for attitude change. Do kids express desire to adopt healthy eating habits and so forth? And the most ambitious one would be behavior change. Do kids actually adopt healthy eating behaviors? And for the time being, it's going to have to be self-reported. But ultimately, we actually want to do a robust study where we measure the school cafeteria what kids are actually consuming. And so with these groups, we're also applying for public grants to the federal government, and we're looking at a couple other grants outside of the government as well. So one of the ones we're going for right now is Open Marketing Fund, which is a grant that is put up by the National Institute of Health and they have some that are specifically for research into games to improve health. So we're very hopeful about being able to get that. And then there are other kinds of grants we're trying to flourish. We're learning a lot about that. It's a world that was completely foreign to me, but it's something we think is a good opportunity for us to do more research in the game and potentially get it expanded and we can build this on. So we're going to continue to build out the game, and we're searching for what that model is going to be. We have a few things going on, and we think there are a number of angles that we can take. Some that are more direct than others, but that's what we're going in the future. So before I wrap up, I want to hit on just one last kind of uncomfortable topic, and I almost don't want to stress this. Okay, so this is what it is. Like it was. So, how many people would say that what we're doing is gamification? What? How many people would say that what we're doing is gamification?
No. I would say what you're doing is gamification, what everyone else is doing is not.
Thank you. It's a terrible word, isn't it? I mean, it sounds dumb, doesn't it? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. This sounds like a stupid word. And anytime someone says them, it feels extremely local and very informal. And it doesn't mean much. Furthermore, it seems to necessarily imply that what you're creating is something which is by its nature something other than a game. It's gamified. It's not actually a game. It has its the definition that people are using, it may be something that I actually very much support, or something that I very much disagree with. And that sort of forces me in a position where I have to make more nuanced arguments than really being inclined to, given the world. So when I hear people talking about the high side of communication is like way up there right now, right? And inevitably what comes out of that is a crash. We're starting to see that. Where there's a backlash, and people start saying, none of this is as valuable as we think. We're not there yet, because we are extremely overhyped. And when I hear people giving their critique of gamification, what I usually hear that boiling down to, although it's expressed in a lot of different ways, is that inadequate attention is being paid with the quality of the player experience. That's basically what I think all of arguments boil down to. And it has to be said, I believe that's true. That for a lot of these experiences that we can get right now, they strike me as cynical, and as something that that doesn't seem like it's really going to work, and that treats games as something that isn't the beautiful kind of structures that they are, but rather an end towards an end. And as I said before, it's really critical for a game to be a game first, and we appreciate it for its gameness, not for something else. So let me give you an example of something that I think is terrible. So Charles Schwab, which by the way is a representative of the so I kind of get a double take out of this, has this game called It's Your Life. Okay, and I'm relatively certain this must have been created by professionals who didn't have an adequate background or care for game design. And so the way that it works is that it poses 10 questions, representing chronologically building stages of their life. And asks you, okay, at this stage, what do you want to do? At this stage, what do you want to do? This stage, what do you want to do? And to win the game, to get the most favorable outcome, what you need to do is you need to pick the options that will spend as little money as possible, or that will make you as much money as possible. Okay, so for example, on the first level, it says, okay, so what do you want to do? You want to be just graduated in high school, you want to be a babysitter, a lifeguard, you want to be a salesperson, you just want to not get a job yet, and like play video games, So what do you think the right answer here would be? What's the right choice? Salesperson would be making most money doing that, right? And this goes on in this experience. As you progress through those, you will get the best possible outcome if you skip college, because that costs money. Never move out of your parents' house, right? Never get married. Never have any children. Kids cost a lot of money. Never travel or take any vacations. Work indefinitely past age 65, and then die alone in a nursing home with lots of money in order to do it. Seriously, the outcome that gives you at the end of that, it says A+, great job! It then has a link to Charles Schwab Financial Advisors, so little Jimmy can figure out how he too can live this dream life. Why is it crap? It's crap because it's not a freaking game. It's some sort of odd life simulator. It doesn't put a priority on the quality of the experience. It's not about playing. It's about imparting this message. It's about imparting the idea that you need to save as much as you possibly can, and you need to work as much as you possibly can, and it's careless in that regard. As a result of doing that, it's actually counterproductive, because the message comes out being distorted. I'm sure that they got into this with good intentions. I mean, people do not save enough. That's absolutely true. But at the same time, the method of going about doing this doesn't work. It creates a contradiction. So it's not well thought through. And games need to necessarily be well thought through. That's one of the things I'm really happy to know. So the fact remains, despite all of that, that games can indeed solve their problems. And there's a lot of great things that are being done out there right now. Things like the Minnesota Historical Society is working on creating a game that can play on an iPhone that you use inside of their museum that actually serves as a tour guide through the museum. It's brilliant. And it's actually creating a completely different model of how you organize a museum in the first place. And normally they're organized as kind of these sneaky patterns. This is an open floor museum where people move from one location to another. And in the process of doing it, they're actually learning history as they go. There's another great thing that I saw at Games for Health called Project Eugene, which is just so endearing. It's targeted toward very young children with developmental disorders. And it's intended to teach them sensory motor skills, audio skills, basic language skills, and so forth. And it's extremely efficient at doing that. It's just very well received. The audience side has a game built into the dashboard that encourages you to adopt more fuel-efficient driving. It's actually one of the ways that increases its fuel efficiency. There are folded, which is something that encourages people to find different ways to pull different protein chains. And it's actually conceivable that through something like that, by playing a game without any knowledge of biochemistry, you actually develop products, which is remarkable. Eterna is another one where people manipulate RNA chains, express as a puzzle game. And you know, when people talk about gamification, they say that gamification is an intrinsically bad thing. And then they take the label of gamification and they apply it broadly. That, I think, is grossly unfair to wonderful efforts like those that are being made that have the prospect of really changing the way the world operates. There's a lot to be done here, and I really reject the idea that games necessarily need to be frivolous experiences. I don't believe that. I think they have the potential to do a lot inside of the world. So, in conclusion, I'll talk about here was changing behavior. And ultimately this is geared toward a bigger role in what games can do inside society. So for example, in this case, we're talking about healthcare. And one of the best ways to improve healthcare is to get people to change their behavior. It's not by treating them, it's by averting negative health behaviors in the first place. And that is, I think, a great opportunity for games. Procedural rhetoric is a wonderful method for exercising the design of games in order to achieve broader social impact. So, once again, we are called Megazord Games. That's our URL. We have business cards. I have 5.
I have some too.
We gamify it, basically.
So you can email us, Megazord Games. You can follow us on Twitter. This guy here is actually Mr. Mega. He's our board. He's the chief official. And again, if you're interested in finding out what it's called, URLs are really designed for what we're about. So I want to thank everybody so much for your time. This was a great experience.
Any questions? Is that a question?
Questions? Hey.
Does the little animal get fat individually? Is his body mass good or body fat percentage of that?
That's something that we are almost done implementing. Yeah, he gets like wide and out. It's really horrible.
There was something that I actually noticed during a certain time presentation. When you were, I'm just trying to word this correctly because I during one of the presentations, we were discussing the game that Charles Schwab had produced together. Number one, I agree with you wholeheartedly the fact that it is crap. That's a given. thing that speaks to me regarding their being negative light is the fact that their game, at least in my opinion, and it goes hand in hand with what you said, their game isn't really a game at all. To me, what their game is doing is their game is pretty much basing everything on how you would primarily, what you would primarily do to live a better life in the real world, or in actual life. Which is not a bad thing, but they're making it, I don't know if this is correct terminology or not, but they're making it too literal. I may not be putting the correct words together, but I'm sure you can understand
No,
what I'm
I
saying.
completely agree with what you're saying. I mean, that goes to the point I was making about games being their own universe, and that that universe should be subject to its own rules, and you should modify the way that universe works in order to suit the end and create a good game experience. That's something that I wholeheartedly agree with. And I do think that one of the problems is that they're thinking things a little. And you know what? I also have to say, in terms of Schwab, I think it's a very easy trap to fall into.
And it really is.
It is.
It is. I
I
agree.
mean, when I try to think about making these game experiences, all those are the first time 5 days that I go through. And you know, they seem to be fruitful initially, but then I realize that this is too little. It's not.
It is, and it's unfortunate that a lot of games that you see on these websites that, you know, everyone's, oh, you know, this will make things, you know, more fun, you know, they see they want this. Well, obviously, it all depends on how you portray the game, you know, what's good into it.
I think there's sort of cynicism in that think about why we play games in the first place, and also it's kind of an impoverished view of what games are.
Exactly, and, you know, their game, you know, is a young game. I can see that it's based, as a society, at pretty much a specific picture or image that is still in our minds of what we're, you know, what we're supposed to look like, how we're supposed to dress, what we're supposed to, you know, what we're supposed to do, and not only that, but you know, a preferred image of what success is, how success is defined. You know,
Like what should we do?
exactly. Exactly. In a way, like we're showing it as, okay, you know, this, metaphorically speaking, this is how we're saying it. It's like, you know, this is what we need to be. There's no ifs or buts about it. If you dress like one dress, or if you want to do it, if you want to do it, you know, you're going to go nowhere. And I know I'm going off on a completely different thing here, but whether you're able to see this or not, Charles Schwab's game that they attempted to put together, and you know, the ideas that I was thinking in society or planning or implementing this, or they kind of hand in hand.
I think you need to realize what Charles Schwab is doing. They're a financial company.
Well,
They want you to they don't really care about you.
Yes.
They want you to make as much money as possible all the way through.
That, by the way, not
It's a question here.
Let's move on. So, I think somebody else has this.
Yeah, what was your experience working with educators and that change from that change?
Well, the other is my wife. So, I think we're going to have more interaction with educators coming up as a result of this stuff. But, I mean, she was extremely helpful in terms of saying, these are the problems that teachers have right now, and this is how this could fit into the classroom. And so that was very helpful. So, like understanding the audience was kind of important in two ways. You need to understand the kids, you need to understand the teachers as well, because both of them are recipients of the game. And you need to do things that are
feeding off with, sorry, your name? Yeah, what he was going on about creatures' body becoming fat. I was curious about how much body image played a role in your design circuits. Because, kids are more or less affected by body image. We're exposed to all kinds of bodies here and there. We're just spoon-fed these images everywhere. And later on, they're just going to start caring more and more. That's how they go on in life. The food, the nutrition decisions they make will affect how they want to see themselves. So I was curious about if that was a major design choice at all.
I do think that we kind of have to take care of that. That we want to try factually that habitually adopting unhealthy eating habits will, over time, have negative consequences on the individual. But at the same time, we don't want to make that a source of conflict. Because body image is something that's very, very simple to talk. And we don't want to make the case that that being overweight is something that is intrinsically bad, or that makes you a bad person in some way, but that is something that we should not, that makes you think that there's something wrong with the person who's obese. So I think that is touchy, that we want to make sure that there's this obvious mechanical gain of the critter gaining more weight. But at the same time, we don't want to be too heavy-handed in terms of saying that this is a negative attribute in a person. So we want to draw that distinction. We prefer to say that this has negative consequences on the quality of life. So you're going to be less productive. You're going to have more difficulty in sports competitions. It's going to, it has potential to degrade the quality of living, and that there are different kinds of lifestyles that can adopt. Some of them can have greater advantages.
And that's why making a non-human alien character is such a huge advantage. I mean, you can imagine if it had been a human, if it had been a representation of a kid, that would have been so problematic in many ways, because then kids would see it and they would relate it to maybe someone, maybe themselves, or maybe someone that they knew. And by making it an abstract character, a cartoon, a non-human, you get away from that a little bit, and you're just changing the character itself from time to time. People can't kind of point to someone and say, oh look, that character's got no human or something like that. And we also, it's interesting though, because even then, we're trying to take care of the alien as inclusive as possible. So the one we have right now really comes across as male to me personally. I don't know if it's a little bit, but so we're trying to make sure that we have ones that come across as male, female, all those different things. So we'll go through the people.
Hi.
Hey.
I love your presentation, by the way. I'm a school-aged child, and I was wondering if your game touches on the idea of being able to concentrate and being able to perform academically even, because my son is 6 and his school feeds them crap. I send him lunch to school, and they actually have a big poster that's like nutrition and awesome, and then they're like giving them donuts for breakfast. And I know for a fact that he has a difficult time concentrating and learning when he's eating poorly, and he has expressed to me that when he's had difficulty at school paying attention, he feels self-conscious about that and is having a hard time and feels frustrated. So I was wondering if the game touches on that, like the ability to I don't know, the concentration thing, I guess. Like, kids can't concentrate when they're hyped up on crack.
Having non-sports-based games, I think, is really it's not something that we talked about, but having academic type games or those type of games would be
Solid advancement, concentration is like healthy. So,
yeah.
it's just like, things like, this is the ball, the ball goes super fast, and you're not eating correctly, when you're eating correctly, it's very slow, and it's where it's actually, goes in nutritional levels, and you can understand where it's at.
kind of exciting about it, because I feel like it represents a small slice of the broad possible universe we could apply this to. And one of the things that really excites me is thinking about what other lessons can you teach for? Can you teach things about concentration? How can you do that? I think of those kind of things. We're also talking about, it's one game to deal with specific chronic health conditions like diabetes and celiac disease, things like that. There's a lot of directions we can go. What we've done so far still feels like a beginning, and there are a lot of different ways we can take it.
Yeah, there is again at Game for Change in New York. There is a whole group of uni bloggers from Indiana University in Bloomington, who are working on games. It's more around mindfulness. It's not specifically on concentration, but the two are like disclosed. So I would suggest you check. You check I probably have their coordinates somewhere, but and the Indiana University Department of Computer Science, and you should find their website. I have a question. It's about the third principle, which is pretty clear. So what I noticed again is we're trying to give a lot of factual information. And so when I engage when I read and engage my analytical brain, for me, analytical brain is what I do all the time, which I get paid for. And for me, that's almost the opposite of playing. So I have a little bit of a discomfort because my question is so keeping it real, there's an aspect of gaming where you exaggerate. There's games, it could be, overeaters. That's somebody who's overeating exaggerates, and it can take proportions which are absurd. If you consider using that kind of negative, showing the act in the context which is really funny. And on one side, and what you think about, I'm really curious to hear, to see the result of your study you're going to do, because this massive information that you're giving, how is this going to fly? Is this still fun? So I have a question.
So, part of what you're saying is that it does seem like a very information heavy. It's very numbers heavy interface right now. It's a very number heavy interface. There's a lot of lists. There's grids you scroll through. Part of that is visual, and part of that is part of what we're looking to improve in more versions of the game. So, changing those long lists with all the numbers to something a little bit more pleasant, a little easier to scan through, more visual. And I think that will help address part of what you're saying. Part of it might not be able to be helped in the design of this game, because part of it is around kind of having people learn about those subtle effects and see if they can figure out the connection between the cause and the effect. And is there anything you want to say?
Well, onto that I think that analytical thinking is actually a really great game. And I think that analytical thinking can actually make a really great game. So, for example, in a role-playing game like Final Fantasy, there are a lot of choices that you need to make about what you're going to equip your party with, what members of your party are going to use, what equipment they're going to have on them, what material, in the case of Final Fantasy VII, they're going to have equipped inside each of their weapons, what the effects of each of those are, what the enemies you're going to be facing with the secret game are vulnerable to. And it's, when I was putting this together, I didn't kind of think about games like Final Fantasy VII, where playing the game is kind of like making soup, where you want to look for the right balance of things. There's not necessarily one right way to do it, and there are a lot of ingredients that you can put together. And what we need to do is we need to analyze the situation and consider where this is in the grand scheme of things, as well as what you need to achieve at this moment in time, which is feeding insanity. And so, and then of course, with games like chess, which are entirely based on analytical. So So I think I would disagree that analysis is different from game notes, because I think that it actually can make it a great way to game.
I just kind of on that. If you made this a little more visual though, because I think it's very visual, like these small icons, but you have it represented that. I mean, that just like, it did seem like a lot of words for a child to sit down in front of, and I was one problems in that age group, and I think that would be a little wrong.
Absolutely true. It is drawing that way, and that's completely true about this right now. That's one of the first things that we want to change.
Should list the font, so like the font and just icons.
Right.
If you do like 40 pieces together, it's just this plus this plus this, it's the same icon, you use it over and over again, it's just that more visual, that makes them interesting, to say, oh, I can keep it so boring.
I mean, what it looks right now is really a result of the fact that we developed this inside of one. We would have wanted to do a lot more, but we needed to make decisions about where we're going to concentrate our efforts. So, like, creating a lot of image assets is very complex.
You have no data for it.
Yeah, now we have the time and the resources to do that. Actually creating a set of illustrations for all of us. Area asset events is one of the things that we're.
If that's your data, it's nice data.
I have a really specific question. I'm wondering if the positive benefits to going to a restaurant would be besides, because it seems like, I'm trying to think mechanically, because we're using Tomigo or sort of benefit for urgency, but just so far, I'm wondering how would be the benefit for the player, but is everything possible, and how would it just cost a lot of money? And because, I mean, I guess time apparently was really an aspect of that.
I guess it's the demand of those services. I mean, right, that's a good point, but there's possibly more we can do to balance that more and more benefits to the restaurant. I would say right now, like, as soon as we implement the buying and selling of meals properly, the main one is going to be just being able to pick up something that will kind of get you there immediately, that will lower your bars, like bad bars. So, like, maybe if you're in a hurry, you just want to go and like do your food, you know, literally, that it isn't right now, I think. But there could be, I mean, there could be other dimensions to the game. Like John mentioned, fullness is one that we took out because it didn't seem relevant, but there might be something like food that we might work in the future that will do that as well.
You mentioned in terms of size, you can have the kind of flexibility for the railroad. Do you consider visual bias to the way that, it's the Department of Health for the purposes of education, of nutrition, get like $1 billion a year, whereas, Mars is a $10 billion a year budget. So, like, the diagnostics would have an apple, and they would have a huge explosion, like, add for a candy bar next to it.
The familiarity effects, like you go to certain foods because you see them.
Yeah, and because of how, like, the advertising shows those big colorful ads that are more frequently seen. This is just seeing a mile after this is right.
It's funny that one of actually the initial idea that I had for the restaurant was that it would be a fast food stand. And when you went into it, it's really different. It would be very advertising, have like little clowns on and things like that. One of the things I wanted to do with that was to create a sense of cynicism about advertising, about that kind of advertising, and give you the basic seeing people, because once you remove the appeal of the taste, then that advertising begins to appear shallow. I was kind of to see if we actually could make kids say, that's just advertising. That's something that I can see through, because this food actually has no value. But I think the idea of creating advertising inside of gaming world, that would be a really rush.
I'm ready to ask it.
I'm okay.
You've gone already.
We can talk afterwards as well. Yeah.
Who wasn't done?
The goal of the game that you earn the normal.
I'm sorry. being in a family of games like Sims or like Farmville, where over time, you never reach an end point inside of it, you just keep going. The game ends essentially when you've lost interest inside it, and when it stops presenting new interesting things for you to do. So the objective and the benefits of living a healthy lifestyle. So that basically comes down to, right now in the game anyway, it basically comes down to decorating your house, to getting these cool things you can put inside or like changing them around a bit. In the future, I'd like to have a mechanic where you're able to expand your house, add new rooms over time, and then open up the possibility to buy different kinds of decorations, like cool things like maybe a robot chef or something like that.
It's all depending on money.
Is that all dependent on money? Yes.
Can you just earn as much money while being fat is winning more races or something like that? So because it's like you said, if you learn how to have a better life, it's all about money also.
Right. It's a good question, because you asked the question of what kind of value are we actually combining people to see inside of it. And to the extent of it is to make money, but that money translates into something else. It's essentially it's a stop on the way to achieving broader objectives like having a cooler home and creating something inside your space, being creative with it, and discovering things. And ultimately, if you're able to interact with other people on that basis, then it leads to different kind of support, which is more social. And so we don't want to create the impression that